Okay, so my next little subject is submarines and surface vessels made out of the same. My whole day is going to be about making things out of what this country could potentially do to create manufacturing out of agricultural products, agricultural resources, to give everybody from the farmer on the ground to the water pump own shop supplier to the builder, the baker, the candlestick maker, everyone gets a job. We move a percentage of people away from the cities into affordable areas in the country where nobody wants to live because it's so hot, but land is cheap. There's lots of land, it's very cheap, you can buy houses for next to nothing. The only thing is there's no work there. I would move somewhere rural. I'm into my hunting, I'm into my outdoors, I just love being in the outdoors. I love fresh water more than I love salt water. So I would be one of the first people to put up my hand to take a job somewhere out here if I could buy and own a house for a block of land for $15,000 or less and build a house out of natural materials that is found locally as an owner builder, and I own my own property where I live in the district where I'm working, and then I wouldn't care about having a low paying job as long as my cost of living wasn't expensive. So I'd be happy to move around here. We've got Aboriginal communities that they don't want to come into the cities. They want to live on the country. They want to keep their bare feet on the bare ground because this is their land. So instead of just giving them dole money to sit around and do nothing, give them some pride, give them, let them grow, let them have their own businesses. Let's make little communities thrive, okay? So this is where this is all coming from. But at the same time, it's a win-win situation as far as I'm concerned, because we got all these people that whinge and carry on about, carbon this and boo-hoo, climate change that, and we got to go carbon neutral and blah, 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 wah, wah, okay? Okay. Without being cocksuckers, this takes us to that end goal, and so it can provide job opportunities, cheap land, cheap living, I was going to say a tree change, but that's not exactly correct because there's not a lot of trees out here. But it would also turn the semi-arid shitholes that you can't do anything with. You could potentially turn these into areas that you now maybe not fertile but are usable, and we're moving people away from the cities. So, and it defensively, strategically and tactically strengthens our nation. If we have manufacturing all over the place, we are not vulnerable by just everything being stuck in a couple of little places around the coastline. Okay, so the next one, submarines and boats. Okay, we have river systems out here, we have lakes where we grow the hemp, the flax, the bamboo, the sugarcane, whatever is potentially going to be used in that little local area. These things the byproducts can power stations, the refineries. The refineries can, with the waste product, provide their own char or their own alcohol or their own biodiesel to power the refineries, and then also any waste from steam. There could be turbines in the steam stacks, and then that could create power as well, for sure. Introduce solar out there as well. So, then we can start to get little thriving communities that we don't need to have power stations on the coast that runs power lines all the way over there, or have dirty burning fossil fuel generators. We can have biofuel generators. that power the local communities, and they can spring up everywhere and see what happens. Okay, so we know that Australia is terribly hopeless at building submarines. Our submarine gap, we're so far behind the eight ball, it's insanity. So again, like the planes, like the vehicles, we have no aviation manufacturing here. We have no vehicles, cars, trucks, buses, maybe some buses, but not a lot. So to get some automotive things kick-started and firing again. Now, submarines. We're hopeless at it, so let's start small. And you put tenders out to design a small 2-man, maybe 3-man little submarine. They could be training submarines for cadets that potentially want to move into the Navy and then get into submarines in the real world. But we can also learn and start training people, getting people used to getting into small confined spaces, going underwater and staying there for X amount of time. And Australia has a huge coastline with lots of little bays, lots of little islands all over the place, right? So just like the Japanese, during World War II, had very successful midget submarines. Japanese midget submarines attacked Pearl Harbor. They attacked Sydney Harbour all the way down here. Japan is like way off the map. It's like, I can't even reach where Japan is on this map. And they were able to get mother submarines, the bigger submarines, all the way down here. They sunk a couple of ships off the Queensland and northern New South Wales coast. They sunk a hospital ship off Moreton Island, which is just off Brisbane, right here. They fired artillery shells from the deck guns into Newcastle, and then they came down to Sydney and they launched 3 midget submarines with float planes that were kept inside these submarines. The submarine, they used the float planes as air spotters, found the targets, relayed the information back to the midget subs. The midget subs went back into Sydney Harbour. One of them got caught in the anti-submarine nets. 2 of them got through. One of them fired I believe, maybe was it only one of them that fired the torpedoes? I can't remember. But one of them hit a US ship that was anchored up in harbour and killed I don't know how many sailors, and maybe there was some Aussies as well on a second ship that was close by or something like that. But there were sailors that were killed, and all 3 submarines were lost, and they ended up finding one that managed to get back out of Sydney Harbour and sunk in the ocean, and it was found, I don't know, 10-15 years ago or something like that. So they were able to pull off that daring raid probably 5,000 kilometres away from home in World War II. Okay? We know the Germans were so successful with their submarine campaigns. The Americans were actually very successful with their submarine campaigns as well. And Britain did some daring raids with their midget submarines. So we know submarines play a major role with ballistic missiles and second strike capability. So what I'm thinking is very small, lightweight, air transportable, road transportable submarines that can be packed onto semi-trailers, into shipping containers, etc. to hide what you've got. That can be Chinook helicopters, Hercules aircraft, C-17 Globemasters, and they can be flown around to wherever you need them. They're very cheap, made of plastic again, and maybe the plastic, keeping it made of biomaterials might be good in acoustics change, so the enemy's sonars aren't used to picking up, and operators aren't used to picking up biomaterial. It could be fooled as logs or debris in the water instead of steel-hulled machines. Smaller engines, lighter, less resistance to push through the water, so the engines can be smaller, more fuel economical. We have battery technology now, so they can charge batteries in multiple ways, whether it's solar, whether it's wind, whether they're getting pushed through the water and you have little turbines that turn from the tide and they just charge your batteries so you can run silent when you need to. Small enough that they can go into shallow water and sit in relatively shallow water in weed beds and things like that to hide. And they could either be armed with vertical launch missile tubes for shooting down drones, planes, anti-missile missiles to take out the missiles. They could also be land-based attack missiles or surface to attack surface vessels. You could even have some that are just a missile boat that they carry one single ballistic missile or an anti-ship missile. A big missile that can with a huge warhead or something that will just destroy blow a ship right out of the water, or to hit a port facility or hit a bridge and just annihilate it, you know. And if we could make these things cheap enough, even if they're not weaponized, even if they're only for training, even if they're only for observation, reconnaissance, and intelligence gathering, right? We have lots of little island nation friends. New Zealand, Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, Vanuatu. We've got Papua New Guinea, Indonesia here, Timor, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, you name it. All of our little mates up to our north here that are potential allies with us. There's no reason why we couldn't build them and then supply them with very cheap, cost-effective little submarines that can hide in little tidal creeks, and then just that are barely sort of able to move around in there, but they're the only things that can move around in there. Then they can come out to surprise and take out aircraft. You know, imagine if we could take out ballistic missiles while they're still climbing through the air from our neighbours to the north. They could take out Chinese ballistic missiles trying to come down this way, or Chinese big bomber planes that are trying to bomb Darwin or any of the Pine Gap, the American big early radar over the horizon missile, radar stations. You know, if our allies to the north had tiny little, easy to hide, easy to conceal, little submarines made of plastic, super cheap, and they could take out Chinese bombers that are heading this way, you know. On the river systems, big creeks, lakes, dams, all weirs all around Australia in the heartland, cadets could be training, reservists could be training, you know. School kids, give them to school kids so that school kids can go and play in them and go down, submerge in their creeks, come up, and it will maybe inspire those kids to dream big, and then they can think of, you know, new inventions down the track. And then we can learn from research and development by making these small things, and we can make bigger things and make maybe a whole family of subs, you know. Start small, work our way up, and then just like the Japanese did, have mother subs, and they release little ones and they can spread out everywhere. Who knows? Just ideas. Thanks, guys.